The term dad bod or mom bod is just a term invented by big mom and dad to make you give up on your dreams of being fit as. There is no reason why suddenly once you have kids, once you become a certain age, that your body is gonna deteriorate into some kind of old, flabby, skinny, fat pile of mess. There is no reason, no scientific evidence, no actual evidence that that should be the case. The only reason that this exists is because it's much easier for a lot of people to just accept that they're not really interested in doing the work that it's going to take to continue getting into better and better shape. If you continue thinking that way, you're only going to slide deeper and deeper into the dad bod or the mom bod that you have chosen to accept for yourself. So in this video, I would like to break down that myth, give you some new ways to think about some of the best years of your life, and maybe give you some strategies to get back onto that upward trajectory where you continue getting in better and better shape into your 30s, 40s, 50s. All right, so that intro was like a little bit harsh, and I'm sorry if that was too much, if you're triggered. I didn't mean to be too intense. First off, I'm 43. When I was 23, I was a full-time fitness model with the Wilhelmina Fitness division. I had jobs with Nike, with Under Armour, with GNC, Dick's Sports, Men's Health, Men's Fitness, whatever. You know, it was cool. And I was in pretty good shape, but there's no question that I am in much better shape at 43 than I was at 23. I have 2 kids now. I do have the benefit of my full-time job being the co-owner and operator of a chain of gyms in New York City called the Fort NYC, where we have taken on a speciality of helping people that once they kind of reach that state of mind or the state of age where society is going to tend to tell them, yeah, you've already reached your peak and it's fine to coast into old age. We provide spaces where we train people in groups of no more than 4 people, where we can work with people individually, but we can bring them into like part of a team, part of a group, part of a bigger program to keep them doing the things that they were doing when they were younger, you know, training with intention, training with oversight, with a coach, and continue to make progress into their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So I have the benefit of this being my full-time job. So this is really important to me. This is my career. This is what I do and sell for the livelihood of my family and the livelihood of all of our employees and our employees' families. So I'm very heavily invested in this. But what I've learned from, you know, myself going from 23 to 43, continued, you know, year over year to get in better shape, at least as far as I can assess that. And not just myself, but our clients as well. The clients that continue to train with us, they continue to get in better shape, even into their 40s, 50s, even 60s. And some of our most impressive athletes in the gym are on the high end of 50, early 60s. And you would never imagine that they are that age. And even by their own admission, can do things now that they definitely couldn't do when they were in their 20s and 30s. So let's go back and let's address the beginning of the decline and what kind of happens. So let's assume that you're a new parent. You're in your 30s, you've had your first kid. Right now, I'm in the thick of this. So like when you have your first kid, bring your kid home, your baby home, your infant home, and it needs fed and tended to and cared for around the clock. And that means that you're not going to be getting as much sleep. Your entire life is going to be flipped upside down. All of your schedule is going to be diverted to really maintaining the livelihood of this infant. And because of that, it's very easy to get off track. It's very easy to also kind of lose your identity beforehand when you had all of this time and all of this ability to dedicate that time to yourself and your health and your growth and your well-being, looking the way you want to look, prioritizing yourself. Because now you're not prioritizing yourself anymore. You're prioritizing this little tiny infant baby. And because it's very hard. It's very hard to figure out what to do. It's very hard to figure out how to find a routine that works. It's very easy to think, well, if now I don't have the same amount of time, that I can't get the same amount of result. There's also a feeling because of that, because you're sleep deprived, you're probably not eating as well as you normally do. You're probably not hydrating as well as you do. Probably not supplementing as well as that you did before. That you start feeling your body different. You feel more aches and pains. You're a little bit more prone to injury. You're also, truthfully, you are older, but that doesn't mean that you're breaking down. It means that you have a lot more experience in your body. And with that experience in your body, you are now a lot more sensitive to your body. When you're very young, you don't have a lot of data. You don't have a lot of experience to reference, the injuries, the pains that you might be experiencing. When you're older and you've had more, reps as a human being, you're a lot more sensitive to aches and pains. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't exist before. They did, but you didn't have as much data or reference to understand what was going on. Your nervous system didn't sense a threat the way that it does in its 30s and 40s. So you're off your routine. You're underfed, you're underslept, you're under-recovered, you're under-supplemented, you're under-hydrated. Your friends are telling you that that's just part of the game now. Just get used to it. So you just kind of give up. I should say you stop prioritizing yourself at all. And it's no longer part of the equation. So the first thing I want to tell you is that is not an inevitability. You do not have to give up. And that does not mean that you cannot still continue to make great progress and great gains in the gym. It just means that you are going to have to be way more focused, way more intentional, and you're probably going to have to seek out some help to offload some of the cognitive decision-making energy that it takes around programming for yourself. What should you be doing? Who's going to keep track of my progress? Who's going to make sure I'm focusing on the right thing? So this is where it's very good to offload some of that decision-making to a coach. Okay, to a coach, to a program, to a third party that can take on some of that cognitive load, do it much more efficiently and much more intentionality so that you can save time and ultimately get a better result, probably a better result than you were before, unless you were really dialed in beforehand. So one, it's just a myth that it's inevitable, that the inevitability is lost. It is true that it's going to take more effort, it's going to take more intent, and you're going to have to be a lot more specific on what you're doing, how you're doing it. If you're used to training 6 days a week, it might mean that you can only train 2 or 3 days a week. If you're used to going to the gym and spending a half hour warming up and an hour afterward in the sauna or the cold plunge and cooling down and recovering, you might have to give up some of that. But it doesn't mean that you can't find 2 or 3 hours per week that you can dedicate to yourself. You can show up, give 100% of your focus, your attention, and your effort into your own development. And this is also true with your nutrition. This is also true with your sleep hygiene, your sleep practice, your recovery practice. you don't have the benefit of as much time, so you have to get a lot more laser focused into it. So hire a coach, hire a program, a process, a gym, find experts that spend all of their time doing this, because one, it's just going to be way more efficient. You don't have the time. They do. They have the knowledge. They spend all day thinking about this type of stuff, and they solve these problems for people, day in and day out. Second, you got to get rid of the friends that are holding you back, or at least cut down on the amount of influence that they have over you. So some of these friends or some of these influences might be family members, and you're not going to get rid of them. You choose your friends, you inherit your family. So if you have family that is maybe not a great influence or telling you to chill out, lay off, you have to understand that that's just them, and they're protecting themselves, because it's much easier to just say, this is out of my control. There's nothing that I can do anymore. This is inevitable. I have kids now, and this is no longer in my control. So once you do that, now you're off the hook. And look, understandably, this is a very hard thing to do because of the limited time that you have. So it's understandable that people would seek relief from the pressure of that responsibility. But it doesn't mean that you do. And it doesn't mean that that's what you want. Ultimately, you have the ability to be an incredible parent. You have the ability to be in the best shape of your life for every day, to be the day that you're in the best shape of your life as you age. And, there's no indication that this can't be the case until maybe you're in your 70s, is where you do see currently, given our current state of medicine and treatment for anti-aging, in the 70s is where you do tend to see things start to decline, even if you're doing everything right. And even though that's the case, if you've built up a very high buffer, you've built up a very high standard, a much higher standard for yourself than if you just slowly decline, you have a much bigger buffer. If your decline in your 70s is inevitable, the decline starts up here versus where it really falls off down here. So there's a ton of value in getting started with this as early as possible. Letting go of that voice in your head that is telling you to let yourself off the hook and give up on the dreams of maintaining your best state of health and best state of being. You have family members that aren't the best influence. You just understand that this is them protecting themselves, and that doesn't have to be you. You do not have to think the way that they think. If you have friends that are just slipping into drinking more, being more sedentary, eating poorly, coping with, the stress in maybe ways that don't serve them, it might be worth considering, is it worth having this person as a friend? Or what could my life be like if I found new friends that were thinking this way, or that were thinking in the way of that your actions matter, that what you do matters, that we're thinking in ways that every day I have an opportunity to get better than I was the day before. Because this is in your control. This is in your choice. This is part of you taking agency over your life and making decisions for yourself that are in your best interest. You do not have to just give up and decline with age. So third, in the training and the programming that you do, the types of work that you want to do. 1, you want to work with very heavy resistance. 2, you want to work with very explosive movements. This doesn't mean all the time. This doesn't even mean most of the time. But the programs that you're doing, you want to make sure that you have regular access to heavy weights, that you're training very specifically with really good form between that 1 to 5 rep range. Okay, so heavy enough that you couldn't do more than 5 reps. And we want to make sure that that's a part of almost every program. You're touching some weights, you're doing some movements that you couldn't do for more than 5, which indicates that these are heavy enough that they're actually going to preserve and stimulate your strength. If you're doing all higher rep, lighter weights, that's great, and there are benefits to it, but those benefits are way less important to maintaining your youthfulness, at least like in your capabilities in the gym, than using heavier loads or using really explosive movements where you're doing basically like a close to max effort. And these are the types of movements that, like, as we age, we tend to do less of because we're playing less sports. We're in programs where that's not as prioritized and not valued as highly. And it's also a lot harder to execute in a bigger group fitness setting, because there's not as much oversight. The movements can be more dangerous if you don't have a coach watching you and prescribing the weights that you should be doing and maintaining the form that you should be using. So you want to make sure that you're using heavier weights, that you're exposing yourself to explosive movements, and that you're maintaining, I always like to say, you're keeping the kid alive. You're doing the types of movements that kids do: sprinting, jumping, changing direction, exerting themselves, kind of at a full effort. The higher rep stuff is great if you layer that on top of the heavy work, because the higher rep stuff actually comes a little bit more natural to us with the more experience that we have. It's kind of the other side of the spectrum of where you're way more sensitive to your body, so you feel those aches and pains a lot more. But as you age, you've had a lot more experience. You have, if you've been training, you've had a lot of reps and sets where you've kind of pushed the limit, and you've, kind of realized that you can push more. Your mental endurance to push harder and longer over time typically increases. This is why you do tend to see really successful bodybuilders who are in their 40s, because they've, one, had a lot of time to build up a lot of muscle, which just takes a lot of time. But two, they also have a lot of experience doing very high rep sets, which, if layered on top of intense strength work, is very effective at building muscle. And, assuming you're not a bodybuilder, this also rings true for general population people. Higher rep sets, if layered on top of heavier weights at lower reps, is a very good way to maintain or grow more muscle. Now, the other thing you want to think about is your protein intake. So protein is what's going to maintain the tissues in your body that are, one, going to protect your joints. Two, they're going to increase your metabolism. Three, they're going to make you look better. The more muscle that you have relative to the amount of fat, you're going to see more of a lean toned physique. So maintaining your muscle is very important, and getting enough protein is very important. Ideally, you want to be as close to, around 1 gram per pound that you weigh per day. So if you can be in that range, that's awesome. I'd say at the lowest end, maybe like 0.6, 0.7 grams per pound that you weigh. On the higher end, maybe 1.2 if you're like a really big person who carries a lot of muscle and you want to continue gaining more muscle. Try to maintain about those protein intakes per day, and then try to eat your protein first with every meal. Try to make sure that the first thing you eat and the first thing that you consume is the allotted amount of protein that you would need to get those total doses over the course of the day, broken up into the amount of meals that you eat. So if you're a 200-pound guy and you need to get your protein intake and you eat 4 times a day, you want to get 50 grams of protein at the beginning of every meal. Eat that first. Then you want to layer on your veggies, your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates you tend to want to eat last. Okay, when possible. Ideally, you're splitting up your meal so that you have protein, you have a separate carb, you have some micronutrients and greens, but you're getting that protein first, you're eating your carbohydrates last. Now, if you combine all of these factors, one, you get your mindset right. Okay, you take the responsibility that it's on you to improve your health and fitness as you age, that there is no inevitable decline until you reach about your 70s. that you don't give in to the pressure of your friends. You potentially eliminate friends that don't serve you. You don't let your friends or family influence you. You just allow them to influence them. You find a good coach, you find a good program, other people that are approaching things this way. You're lifting heavy weights, you're doing explosive movements, and you're getting enough protein. That is going to put you ahead of 99% of people that work out and 99.9% of people in general. And if you can do that over time, and you can give yourself some grace, not be too hard on yourself, be fair with yourself, you'll find that you are capable of way more than you ever imagined into the years that you thought this would be impossible. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you're able to implement, some of these strategies and tactics, some of these frameworks into your life. You go out and get it. And if you want to learn more about how I approach aging, how I try to make every day the day that I'm in the best shape of my life, you're going to want to check out this video. I will see you there.